Welcome everybody to day 5 on the law of the gospel, and today we're going to talk about appropriately seeking the gift of faith. So how can we appropriately seek this vital gift of faith in our lives? The lecture on faith states that in order to exercise faith in God unto life and salvation, 3 things are required. First, we must accept the idea that God actually exists. Second, we need to have a correct understanding of the nature, attributes, and character of God. And then third, we need to have a sure knowledge that the path we are pursuing in this life is in accordance to God's holy mind and will. Seeking for and receiving the attributes and the character of God and the Savior on behalf of others has intrigued me literally for a long time. And when I study the scriptures, I look for doctrines and principles and patterns and sequences and relationships. So let's just talk briefly for a moment about sequence and how sequence, if we look at it correctly in the scriptures, can be really, really super instructive. So, for example, in the first vision, we learn about the true nature of God, that the 3 members of the Godhead are separate and distinct beings, and that the Father and the Son have tangible, perfected bodies of flesh and bone. That came first. So what came second? The second thing to come in his restoration is the Book of Mormon. And then, so the next question is what came third, right, in the restoration? And that's the priesthood. So, it's very instructive to just take note of that sequence. So when we start to begin to think about the Savior and who he is and what's important to him, if you and I want to know what the Savior thinks is important, it's really obvious in the scriptures if we look for sequence and relationships. So do you remember what the Savior said to his apostles? My time, on his last night, he said, my time is at hand. In essence, Jesus was saying, I'm going to leave and I'm soon going to die. And I think it's a very reasonable assumption that knowing he now has very little time left, that what he teaches will be extremely important. And what is the first thing that he did or said after that? He instituted the sacrament. And it's an ordinance. So I think a little bit more about this idea of what's really important to him, right? He instituted the sacrament, he instituted an ordinance. Consider the Book of Mormon. When Jesus Christ appears to the people at the temple in the land bountiful, he is introduced by his Father, who bears witness of his Son. And then the Savior bears witness of himself. And the people come forward and they feel the prints in his hands and in his feet and the wounds in his side. And then he confers priesthood authority. He clarifies the proper mode of baptism and teaches the people that there should be no contention. What is the first thing that Jesus Christ did? He taught about priesthood authority and an ordinance. If any of us wants to know what the Savior really thinks is important, it's evident in the sequence of these particular episodes. So you'll remember in the Doctrine and Covenants, as the Savior is restoring his gospel, this is what he said to the prophet Joseph Smith. He said, in the ordinances of the priesthood, the power of godliness is made manifest. And without the ordinances thereof and the authority of the priesthood, the power of godliness is not manifest unto men and women in the flesh. That's in Doctrine and Covenants, section 84. So, I don't know everything included in the power of godliness, but I think the blessings of the atonement of Jesus Christ are part of it. And that is why he came to the earth in the first place. We cannot have access to those blessings, which includes his gift of faith, which is his character, and receive in the fullest measure possible unless we receive the ordinances, the saving ordinances of the gospel, and remember to live and honor the associated covenants. Then we need to get engaged in helping others receive them. This is truly how we take upon us his name, which is who he is and his character and his attributes. So why? What is his name? And why is it so important that we take it upon us and that we truly change and we become like him and that we actually receive all of these various gifts, including the one we're talking about, this vital gift of the gift of faith. His name represents everything our Savior Jesus Christ has ever done. Everything he is doing and everything he will ever do. And he does this because of his nature, his character, his attributes and perfections. He can do what he does because of who he is. So we must do what he has done and is doing and will do in the future if we are to become like him. Let me say that again. We must do what he has done and is doing and will do in the future if we are to become like him. Now, we can't do those things without his help. We can't do that without his character, including this particular gift, the gift of faith in him. It is his character after all. And we can't become what he is without the power of godliness that comes through his atonement. So we can only receive the power of godliness through the ordinances and covenants of the gospel. And that allows us to have full access to the blessings of the atonement. And that through him, through our Savior Jesus Christ, he can give us his character as we act and do the things that he acted and did. And then he can give us the power to do those things that are beyond our capability. And we truly, over time, line upon line, can become like him. And one of those things that we need is the gift or the character of faith. It's as simple as that. Okay. All right. Day 5 of the books. We'll talk more tomorrow. And I look forward to continuing our conversation about the law of the gospel. And I think tomorrow we're going to be discussing literally the idea of about accepting and acting on invitations related to the Savior, right? Because we need to do what he's asking us to do. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll talk to you later. You have a great day.